Alrighty, here we are. So, I hope you enjoyed that fascinating and fun little intro clip that we add to the start of the shows now. And we are thrilled this evening to have the magnificent Curt with us. And also, you may notice a face that you don't generally recognize, although you may have seen him commenting. Yes, that is in fact the George. We don't have a Sen tonight, and George has stepped in to helpfully not only do tech, but also be part of the conversation. So welcome, George.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, George.
I didn't. Your mum did. Alrighty, so...
Good night, everyone.
Thank goodness, because that would be super weird. That would be a strange situation. Alrighty, so obviously we have the magnificent Curt on the show. Curt, why do you think you're here?
I do not know. I mean, it's Halloween, so if you're looking for a clown with a tearaway face, I guess that's could be me.
Okay, so for those people who don't know Curt, how about you give us a little bit of your how you got to where you are now and who you are background story.
Rightio. So, I'm Curt Covert, and for 21 years, I have been the owner and secret behind the sauce for Smirk and Dagger games. Worn every hat that there is to wear in designing and publishing board games. And started with, I pretty much like everyone. I love board games, a desire to break out of the creative constraints of my day job, stop listening to clients and start doing something for myself. So started building expansions for games I loved and ended up spending so much time on one of them that my friends were like, dude, you spent 2 years and gave away the stuff for free. Like, why don't you create your own board game sometime? And I had never thought of it. So I started to think about it, came up with 3 terrible, horrible games, which I didn't do anything with. I just let them die. And then decided, okay, I need to figure out if let's make an imaginary journey where I open a game company. Why would anyone want to come to play my games? What is my point of difference? And I looked at mission statements of other companies, like, we make fun games for everyone. It's like, that's not a mission statement. What can I do? So I said, well, I love backstabbing games. I love the emotional roller coaster of just the, I'll get you back and you're doing terrible things. And I find it hysterical. So with that vision in mind, I created my first game in 2 weeks, which was Hex, which, by the way, that is what I call the beginning of my company. When that game delivered to my warehouse, it was Halloween Day in 2003. So this is my anniversary, folks.
Happy anniversary!
Your game can drink.
Indeed, yes. Readily.
That's bizarre. How does that feel?
It's bizarre to think that I've spent this much time making games. But now, mind you, for 14 years of that, I still had my day job. So this is something I did from 9 p.m. to midnight most days. 1 game a year, and that was enough. But
I mean, a whole game a year is still a lot.
Right.
Even if that's all you're doing, it's a lot.
But now, obviously, I live in a very different world doing it full time. And I've got my first employee as of last year. So now we're ramped up to 5 to plus games a year. I know. Yeah, it's been a wild, frightening journey, which I've enjoyed.
I mean, you've always got interesting stories to tell, and I guess with that many years of experience, it would be a shame if you didn't have stories to tell.
Luckily, they're all stories I managed to survive in one way or another. So
I mean, we've survived every day of our lives so far, right? That's the thing. So the theme of this evening's show is designing games specifically for holidays. So having those particular thematic games, and in a lot of cases, those are games you just play this one time. But some of them are ones that you could play kind of anytime. What is it like for you being responsible for the whole boop phenomenon in some ways? Seeing those variations of your game out there, well, the game you published, let's be clear, Scott designed it, out there with those different variations, what made you decide that you were going to do like boop and boop?
Well, so
Boop the hole.
you know what? Let me actually jump back to the beginning of what you were talking about, because it's interesting. There are some games that get designed for holidays. There are other games that are simply seem appropriate during a given holiday or not. And I think the ones that just somehow seem appropriate are far easier to publish. And quite honestly, Halloween is the low-hanging fruit of the holiday universe for two reasons, two very important reasons. And the first is that anything in the horror genre is a perfect tee-up, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're like, well, of course, during Halloween, what are we going to play? We'll take out, Betrayal on the House of the Hill. We'll take out, like, there's all kind of, the Night Cage.
The Night Cage, yeah.
That's not a Halloween game.
But it's good for Halloween, yeah.
But, like, everyone pulls it out during Halloween because it's spooky and fun. Now, of course, you're right. Other games have been built specifically for the holidays, and why do you do that? Should you do it? Are all excellent questions. So your question to me was about boop. Now, the first thing is that first of all, you never know when you launch a game. You always cross your fingers that I believe in this game, and you release it into the world not knowing if it's going to strike a chord with people or not. Now, what ended up happening was when Scott and I were working on the original Boop, we actually had a lot of brainstorms, even about the nature of what the game should be. When I first showed it to my team, I had some people who were like, "Ugh, a cat game? Really? That we're going to do a cat game?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, maybe, but why not cats, first of all? But also, yeah, I mean, it could be about dragons, and it could be Adventure Boop. It could be about robots, and it beat Boop." I designed 3 different covers at Gen Con one night. Like, yeah, because I'm not busy enough at Gen Con. And
yeah,
so
of course.
It's like at Gen Con, because that's where you sit around doing nothing.
Exactly. So here I am at 2 a.m. putting together designs for 3 boxes to kind of showcase, because let's have the conversation. And all of them actually looked pretty cool. But we absolutely decided, and I was pretty convinced. Even I fell in love with Scott's design when it was cats on a bed. I mean, it's just, there was something so charming about that. We were going to make it. So, but interestingly, when we had first, I showed Scott those designs the next day, and he's like, "Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, beep boop, that's very funny." So that was where the conversation ended, and then before Boop actually launched, like a good 6 months before it hit the market, I saw Scott at another show, and he's like, "Hey, listen, you remember that conversation we had, back at Gen Con?" I was like, "Yeah." About, like a robot version, like a beep boop. It's like, "Yeah." And he drops it right in front of me. This game has been designed and waiting and ready before Boop launched. And so we had always known that we could take Boop and do other things with it. And by the way, Beep Boop is an amazing game, which we can't wait to get to market, but we'll probably wait just a little bit longer. So in any case, I have taken a long roundabout way to say, so how do we get to Holiday Boop? Well, Scott is how we got to Holiday Boops. Once the once Boop had launched and exploded, and again, you just never know what's going to really strike a chord, and Boop was a phenomenon, still is a phenomenon. When it launched, we blew out of the entire stock in a week and a half, and it was 12,000 units, the most I've ever printed of anything at that time.
That's so many.
Yeah, the last run was 43,000. So
wow.
I know.
That's so many.
In any case, once we saw the reaction that people had to Boop, Scott came. I forget where we were, but we were talking about, gee, do we want to, do Beep Boop? Do we want to follow on? And he's like, hey, wait a minute. What if we did a Halloween edition? And I'm like, my first reaction is, wait a minute. You're going to build a particular board game for a themed holiday that has a window. That's not smart.
I think you'll find that Halloween having a window is not true.
Not the case. Right. So that was my first gut, but I also realized that Halloween is one of the exceptions. Halloween is fun all the time. I don't know if necessarily, a game called Trick or Treat would work throughout the year.
That's
but
fair.
Spooky themed, cute, or even just again, horror games. Halloween makes an exception. Witches and goblins and ghouls are happy all through the year. So I said, okay, yep. I think Halloween probably has a good chance. And we agreed that it should not be just the same game with a skin. Because we certainly have seen, and we've talked, Kat. There are games that have done just that.
And I'm the one who buys those.
Right. Some are very successful. But I didn't want to be that company with just the skin game. So we're like, well, here's the thing. We have, if we want to get it out for this Halloween, we need something on press in 3 weeks. So,
wow.
So we probably don't want to stray too far from the core design, but we can certainly come up with something fun that expands, twists, adds some interest. And so he actually went off and started thinking about what that might be. And I think early on we kind of felt like ghost cats were like the way to go, but how they worked, what they were going to. So I kind of left that in Scott's court.
I'm just going to interrupt you really quickly with a very important merch suggestion.
Yes.
Ghost cats. Carry on.
Radio. So I started designing I'm the illustrator for the game as well. I'm a cartoonist, by hobby, if not trade. So I was able to at least do that kind of style work. I had done the original Boop box, so I started working on, the look of the game, and Scott came back, and I think we had a couple iterations. My memory's a little fuzzy on the whole thing, but one of the things that really struck me about the Spooky Boop, which technically it's called Boop, but I don't like saying that. So
they call it Boop.
Yeah, but with the ghost cats, what I thought was absolutely magical about Scott's design choice in this was that, you find something that's true, and cats get spooked for no reason. Like, if there's ghosts, cats see them clearly, because they'll be sitting in a room and they'll be like, "Go!" and they just like leap, like something is terrifying, and you're like, what happened? So with that, I think maybe inspiration in mind, the ghosts in the Spooky Boop edition are both there and not there. They don't occupy a space. They occupy the space in between spaces. They ride on the seams of the board, and they're the only piece that moves. And the cats can sense them, so when they slide in between cats, they leap away. And we evolved this idea that, you know, where normally if you boop a cat, it's blocked by another piece adjacent to it. Well, this has got to be so scary, though. It's got to leap over anything to get to the next open space. And that created a new dimension to play, some nuanced fun that still, like, honored the original Boop, didn't stray too far, and was something that we could absolutely make sure, like, we play tested it enough in those 3 weeks that we're like, yup, we're good. Let's roll it. And we did. So so that was how the Halloween edition of Boop actually got done.
And I remember, so you were trying to get that out for, when did you release it? Was it Gen Con last year?
It was, yes.
Or was it Origins? Gen Con?
No, you're right. It was Gen Con last year.
I remember queuing for it wherever that was, because I don't queue for things normally. Partly it's too hard for me to stand for that long, but just in general, I'm just like, whatever. I'll just wait till it comes out. The people who are really excited about it can queue for it. But this one, I was like, nope, I'm going to queue for this just so that I've done it. It's my first Gen Con. I'm going to stand in one queue. And so I did that. And I was super excited because, you know, I knew some of the people involved. So I wanted to say hi to the people involved as well. And I was like, oh, hi, Scott. And so Scott signed it for me and stuff like that. And this was, I think, before we had met, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it must have been 2 Gen Con. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. It was just the last Gen Con. It was the Gen Con before.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I skipped a Gen Con. That's what it was. Yes. So that was, we lost Curt.
Well then.
In the meantime, anyway, hi Jade. I also buy all the spooky things. And hi Deadpan, waving at you. Hopefully we can get ourselves a Curt back in the meantime. But anyway, is he coming back? Is
yes.
that him? Have we got him?
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna move him backward.
I don't see him. I just see a space for him.
He should be.
There he is. Yes, coming back. Yep.
Ghosts did their worst.
Yeah.
And they knocked it right out. Oh no, now Cat's gone.
Oh no. I'm trying. There we wait, no, that's not what I want. Show cat and stream. Difficulties.
Oh, I see Jade's out there.
Yay,
hey, Jade.
I'm back. Yes, Jade made a comment saying that she buys all the spooky things too.
Yeah.
George, can you put the comment up on the screen?
Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can. Show.
Yes, there we go. Jade and I are on the same page about this. So when we both took turns ghosting there, Curt, what I was saying was that was my first time queuing, and I was very excited queuing for that particular game. Amusingly, I've never actually played my copy of that, and I have only ever watched people play that one. I have played Boop the Halls, though, with you.
Indeed. Well, so that was the first time you queued for a game. Coincidentally, that was the first time we had a rush on the booth. Was that Gen Con 2 years ago. Now, that was the premiere of the original Boop, as well as the Spooky Boop at Gen Con. And talk about terrifying, seeing the rush of people coming for your booth. that actually was intimidating. So, but delightful. So,
I mean, the queues were wild. Like, there were people standing around, like, at their booths going, what's going on? And I was like,
yeah, we were not prepared for that reaction. Though Gen Con this year, with the advent of the holiday version,
advent of the holiday version.
Look what I did there.
Done.
Yeah, that Gen Con saw it coming on the social channels. Facebook was saying, okay, what door do I go through to get to Smirk and Dagger's booth first? And they said, listen, you're going to have a rush. We need a plan in place for traffic control. And we had to show them the plan like 5 times before the doors opened. So yeah.
Wow.
So
how much of Boop did you order for that first run, and was it enough?
The answer was I ordered. At that time, we had seen the rise on even the original, so we ordered 18,000 of them. We assumed that would be at least enough to get us through Halloween, and they disappeared in 2 weeks from our warehouse. Now, mind you, the retailers who decided they were going to go all in, we had some retailers. Some of the same retailers, by the way, who were like, should I get 3 copies? That might be too much. Like, we had orders for 60, 120, 240. Now, those who ordered deep, they had them for this year. They either kept them on the shelf or they put them in the back room to bring them out. But we did not have Spooky Boop on the shelf this year from us. And part of that is probably going to lead into your next question about how did Boop the Halls happen?
That sounds like a great question.
You can self-manage this interview.
I'll just turn off my camera and it's cool.
Honestly, I'll just chat here for a while. So because I in general, Halloween being the exception, don't necessarily believe in a lot of seasonal games because they have such a short window. And so Scott, after the success of Boop, after the success of the Spooky Boop, he's like, he had an Easter edition. He had a Christmas edition. He had I'm like, whoa, Scott, listen, we're not going to do any more seasonals. So, are you sure? Because these are really good games. Like, and he showed me the Easter version, and by the way, it was a really good game. But and he had Easter bunnies that would drop eggs, and then you bounce the eggs off of the edge, and then they crack open into chicks, and you line up 3 chicks, and that's how you win.
I would play that game.
And like it's great mechanics. And it worked beautifully with the theme. But I was like, Scott, the Easter is a 2-week window.
Don't make it Easter then. Make it spring.
You could make it spring, but if you're talking about Easter bunnies and chicks, guess what? It's an Easter game. And then I'm also like, well, not all holidays are for everybody. Easter is a very Christian holiday. So you get into all kinds of things.
Although both of the things that you're talking about as being Easter things are actually pagan. So
correct.
If you make it a spring game,
you are correct.
Mayday Boop.
Absolutely.
Equinox Boop.
Yeah. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but
yeah. But in any case, and I said, honestly, if this was about dragons laying eggs and creating little dragons, okay, that's fun. But it got into a whole discussion about what holidays made sense from my point of view and like what seemed risky.
By the way, before I forget, you have now twice mentioned cats and dragons and things like that. I would just like to make a little quiet plug here for my friend, award-winning designer Randy Flynn, who has actually got a game called Cats and Dragons that is on its way to the world, and it's good. I believe I have played it twice, maybe once, but I'm excited about it, and I think you should be too. And back now to our regular scheduled program. Maybe you could make that one about dragons, though. That would be cool. But anyway,
we'll I have no idea. Sometimes I feel like the Joker, where he's like, "Do I look like someone who makes plans?" So in any case, but But Scott did come to me after the success of Halloween in particular, and said, "Hey, we really need to do a Christmas version." I'm like, "Oh, Scott, come on, we've been through this. I don't think we can really do a lot of seasonal things. I think there's going to be a wear out. I think there's a narrow window." It's like, I hear you, but this would be about cats jumping into a tree and knocking ornaments out of it. I'm like, oh.
Yep.
But see, and honestly, that's where the intersection really lives for me, because like the spooky boot, once you say a Christmas version with cats, if you leverage cat behavior, that people are like, of course my cats do, like, all of a sudden you're making a connection with people, and it's not just like, oh, we're slapping a new picture on the box. This is something that's integral to being a cat owner, and therefore that's the kind of thing that I want to produce. One that is just like, I see my own cat in that. Yes, I have to have that. So immediately I was swept up with the idea of doing it. But we had a similar problem as we did with Spooky Boo, and that was it was maybe mid-November, and we had maybe a month, 2 months to get everything done. And in this case, we had also, I think, decided that we didn't want it to be even a game like Spooky Boop, where if you take out the ghost cats, you can still play the original game just the same. We wanted it to be unique unto itself, which is all well and good, except what does that mean? Well, we knew that it was going to be tree based, so it's going to have a dimensional tree involved somehow. But we also really thought the idea of cats knocking ornaments out of a tree as a secondary win condition, well, that should change everything. Well, how does that all execute, and does it actually balance? And so we, because we were so pressed for time, Scott was working on the design, and he showed it to us, and we're like, ooh, I'm not sure if this is necessarily working. And we created, Gaten and I created a version. We sent it back to Scott, and he's like, I don't think this is working. And we kept on arm wrestling back and forth for probably a month, a little bit longer. And you could, we were all working towards the same goal, but we were working with different play testers, having different experiences, and the results of those were leading us down different pathways. So it was not productive, and you could feel like the frustration, and which is never fun either, So I finally said, Scott, there's a show locally. Let's bring you out. Let's sit down and let's knock it out together. And so we did. We sat down. We agreed on some basic tenets face to face. We tried a couple things. We brought people in to play test it, and in 2 days we had locked down the design that was working for both of us. Now, of course, by that time, Gaten had also been very invested emotionally and in the game. So I was like, okay, we agree. This is going to be the game. I still have to go sell it to Gaten. And it really was. It was the right design. It was the right tension. It was the right balance of elements, and it was more of a challenge. Now, this is the only potentially tricky thing for someone who sees Boop the Halls and it's their first exposure to Boop. But they got it because, oh, Christmas, yay, and cats, yay. Well, it's one step higher in strategy and rules and other things, so it might not be the best entry point to the Boop line. Where I think Spooky, you could probably, still, equally approach it. Now, it's it's not, going to break anyone's brain completely. And I think, most casual gamers are going to be absolutely fine with it. But people who are like just on the fringe, just getting into board gaming, yeah, maybe it's a little bit harder than it.
To be fair, I think Boop would challenge most people who are just casual gamers coming into gaming in general.
Right. I mean,
but you're right.
It's a challenging game.
It's a more difficult version
to learn, and that's the difference. Yeah,
it's interesting. I actually found this to be the easiest Boop to strategize for.
I am delighted to hear that, because that was one of my major concerns, and if that was unfounded in any way, I am delighted to hear it.
It's the only one I've won.
So let me ask you then, what did you find to be the difference for you?
I almost think like the fact that there are two ways to win, like that I could win with the with knocking things off trees as well. I think the fact that I could basically pivot and change my strategy.
Interesting.
That was for me, because I generally play a lot of abstract games, and I generally play ones that have got more paths to victory kind of thing. So along the Euro type of game. George is, apart from being a chess player, he's got a slightly different approach to games. And so every time we've played Boop, because it fits the chess brain, he's just thrashed me each time. I don't think I've ever beaten him at any chess type game.
Very interesting.
So Hive as well. I think George, it's Hive. I'm pretty sure it's Hive that he also beats me at every time.
You won once.
Once it's got a little bit more, okay, fine, I won once. Once it's got another element to it, I seem to perform better. I'm not sure what that is. So that's what cool. I particularly like, I mean, you were there when I won this particular one, and I almost didn't because I got distracted again. And then you were like, hang on. And I was like, thank you. Because of the 3D. So for anyone who hasn't seen this is actually, it's like a stepped pyramid. So if you're sitting in front of it, you can't see all of the places things could happen. And I had actually missed something that I couldn't see on the other side because I hadn't held every single thing in my head the way I normally do, because there was a lot going on around me. I think this was at the gathering, wasn't it? Yeah, there was a lot going on around me, and I was thinking about all the things instead of just thinking about the game. So I did. That's the only reason I won, is because someone said to me.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, the dimensional board, we didn't put it up on the back of the box this time because of the height. You do want to be able to see over the board, and that was going to worsen that problem. But the height of the board itself, so long as you can see it all, shouldn't matter at all.
No.
But your brain doesn't know that. And you will still, even though it's because of the stepped change, sometimes people will not see the 3 in a row as clearly as they would on a flat board. So
what you actually said to me, you didn't tell me there was something there. You said, stand up.
Yep.
And I went, of course. So I stood up and I looked at it from above, and it was the same. Well, it's not exactly the same, but it was, it was much. And I was like, oh my, because the thing I'd been working towards that I'd forgotten about because I started on a different strategy actually had come about. And I was like, oh man, that would have been annoying. So yes, that's, yeah, I think that's my favorite one. And the theme is great. But I mean, for me, what I would love to do is have themed game days. I don't care what the theme is. I just like to have several games of the same theme on that day.
No, I think
so I like to do like mushroom themes or whatever. And so holidays fit into that, because I'm not actually a holiday person in the way that a lot of North Americans seem to be. But I love themes. And so I'm like, well, these are the themes people love here. I will lean into that. This is a place we our Venn diagrams can intersect. I will also play Halloween things. I will do like autumn themed stuff. Yay, this is great. So when I see things that are themed, I'm like, yes, come and join my collection of things that, where we can have like a themed thing. And the fact that it's actually got functionality outside that, love that.
And and again, Scott and I have had so many conversations, in particular about holidays and which ones to pursue. And I think seasonal is probably an easier place. And he did, the last time we talked, he's like, okay, but like, what if the cats are like in floaty rings in a pool?
Beach poop. I was just about to say beach
Right.
poop. I want beach poop.
So so something like that, I think, creates.
And they could knock over your cocktail.
That's great.
You can have that for free so long as I can have a beach poop.
Sounds right. So,
like as long as it exists, I mean, you don't have to give me a copy. I support people.
Oh no. But in any case, so I think seasonality, I think, probably has more opportunities for sales and longevity and a larger window, as opposed to so many holidays. Valentine's Day, it's great, but you know what? No one's thinking about Valentine's Day except for like 4 days.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost always really tacky stuff. Whereas if you have, I don't know, Fog of Love or something, which is not Valentine's Day, but
then you're in a romantic theme. So do themed games I love.
Yes.
Like, and I think seasonal can play a big role in themed games.
Yes.
Or it might be that some themes just naturally fall into seasonality. A surfing game.
That's two.
That's two.
Third one, we're cutting you off.
Like a surfing game is great for like a summer lineup of games. It's not a summer game. It's not a 4th of July game, but that's terrific. Where
Boop on boards.
What's that?
Boop on boards.
Boop on boards. And what was the game that recently did like all the colored leaves and the
Leaf?
It was just called Leaf.
If you mean Tim's game, where you've got like a cutout leaf and you're touching them like tip to tip, and that's Leaf. I love that game.
Like, again, that isn't necessarily even a seasonal game, but would I put it together for a fall lineup in my store? Yes, I would. I'd take advantage to showcase thematics, because I think people are like, you're like, oh, give me another reason to like try this game right now.
Yeah.
Great. So I think that's really the thing. When you're a publisher, you're not just thinking necessarily about the games you want to print and hope sell. You kind of have to think about your retailers. You have to think about, how are they going to merchandise it? What's going to happen after the seasonality? Is it something that can live on the shelf, or is it something they put in the back room for 6 months? So I do think about things like that. But one thing that I had been, again, wrongly concerned about was I was concerned too many seasonal versions of the game might kill the game. Just like there's just too much. And
I mean, there's some game where that's happened, isn't it? Some game where they do like heaps and heaps of, what's it called? Monopoly? Yeah, no one buys that at all, do they?
Oh, sure they do. That's still a crazy selling game. Yes.
Right.
That's Cat's sarcasm.
Yeah. But in any case.
But no, I get what you're saying. It's a huge risk because it cheapens the brand potentially if you do too much of it.
That's what I was worried about it. So what I said was, okay, what we'll do is we'll have the seasonal product. We'll rotate them. So this year we won't do Spooky Boop, and we will do the holiday, and then next year we'll do Spooky, and we won't do holiday. Well, one, I guess I shouldn't have worried, and really all I did was upset some consumers and retailers who wanted those things.
You lost sales.
I disappointed people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Have you found that the sales of the more holiday focused ones have taken away from the sales of just standard Boop, or is it just it's all wins?
Yeah. Thus far, thus far, that has not been the case. Now, I will say, when people were taking a look at that first Gen Con, they had regular Boop and they had Spooky Boop. And there was a decision point, which was, oh, I can actually play regular Boop with Spooky by taking the ghosts off. Therefore, I will buy the Spooky one. And so, yes, did that erode a little bit? It wasn't an additive thing, but no. The answer is we printed 18,000 of them. It blew through. So did regular Boop, and we sold out of both during that Gen Con before the end of the show. So it was, they didn't go through. They didn't go through all of Spooky before they hit regular. And the same thing happened this Gen Con when we had Boop now for the second year and the Boop the Halls. Yeah, that was the hot new thing. So certainly that went very quickly. But we also sold like another 400, almost 500 regular Boops too. So it's...
And almost all of the stuffed toy ones, like the one you've got behind you there. Like, I don't think you had any left at the end, did you?
I think we had 5.
Yeah, it was. I mean, given that I showed up when you were first setting up and helped you tape down your carpet, and then I came back past again and I saw that you had stacks upon stacks of games all around, and I was like, you don't have enough stock. And this was in an enormous booth from my perspective. I was still looking at it.
I've ever had. Yeah,
yes.
It was a 20 by 40, the first time ever. And at first we were like, what are we going to... I mean, we knew we were too big to do the 2020. But I was like, well... Then when Skate and I started planning it, we're like, well, actually, we actually need all those demo tapes. We got 3-4 new games that are hitting the market. We want to still demo some. And then we're going to need just room to put
to stack
stock.
1 million games. I mean,
because I remember, I mean, not too long ago, there were lots of Gen Cons where I was super excited to be selling 50, 75 of a brand new game. That was
that's
great.
For most people. That is Gen Con.
Yeah.
Like for most small publishers, that's woohoo. Like, that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping if once we have our games at booths, we can sell 50 to 100 units.
Yeah,
even
exactly.
200 would be amazing. And you're talking the sudden jump from that kind of a thing to thousands.
It's been a strange trip now. Obviously, it has not been just Boop. Certainly, Boop has reshaped the company a little bit, but Night Cage came before Boop and continues to kill it.
And Tesseract, I'm hearing a lot about Tesseract.
Tesseract doesn't have the same volume that the other two do, but yeah, I mean, it's an amazing game. Like, this game is killer. We blew out of at Gen Con. We seem to be perhaps doing a better job of seeing opportunities that lead to the gotta have it moment. And I'm even screening, the games that I'm looking at, bringing in to make sure they've got something that I believe has that. Now, I may not be right all the time, but
Hi-Fi, I think, should be doing well too, right?
Yeah, Hi-Fi has an amazing presence, great shelf appeal. Like, on the table, it's like, oh my God, what is this thing? And a really attractive price point. So I expect that this will also be doing extremely well this holiday. But the truth is, until time passes, you have a lot of assumptions, a lot of hopes, and you just wait to see what happens.
I know that I know that these numbers are difficult to figure out and discern, but like, have you found that the sales of these very popular items, Boop and Night Cage, have sort of brought people to the rest of the Smirk and Dagger catalog? Do you think it's translated into people looking at what else you've offered?
So I think um, the answer, first of all, has to be yes. But I think beyond that, since I started my company, I've had a philosophy about what I thought, like, convention experiences should be.
Mm.
And I told anyone who's ever come to help me in my booth, we are not here to sell games. Put it out of your head. We are here to entertain. We are here to welcome friends and family. We're delighted to see them. We're excited to show them all the new stuff that we're excited about. And we love to play games with people. And if a sale happens as a result, great. So that that philosophy, that kind of I don't know, atmosphere is true in my convention booth, and even wherever else you encounter Smirk and Dagger. So um, I think that's gone a long way. People who like one of my games have very, very often come back to see what else. So we see people at conventions that we've known now for years. We've seen their kids grow up. We've got long term fans, um, and are both blessed by that. Yeah, one game sale does lead to another, but again, it's not the game sale that's doing it. It's the experience. Now, sometimes that's the experience they have around the table that they want to see. Cool. What else do they have that also creates a fun experience that's going to be memorable? And that's what I love about games that have narrative elements, that have deep thematics. Like, you're not just playing a game and seeing what the score is. You're having an experience that leads to memories that you'll continue to trade. That to me is like my stock and trade, and I think that because of that, that helps link uh, fans of one game to become fans of a line. And I'm sure other game companies have also found that to be true. But my hope is that they find it particularly so with mine.
There is also the appeal of like that sort of merchandisey kind of thing, and Boop has really nailed that. So like people really like that type of cutesy look and all those sorts of things. And I know I'm a compulsive collector, so I'm
Yeah.
probably an extreme case, but if I like something, I tend to buy all of the something. So I will buy every boop. I will buy the soft toy. I will buy the pins. I will buy whatever. Unless it's, going into areas where I just can't justify it taking up the
Sure.
space. So the plushie is right on the edge of that for me.
Yeah.
But I had to get that particular one. Um,
So
and
interesting
so
story.
continuing with your set is a really good idea there.
Yeah. Uh, Jumping right into that, I have to take another little personal hit because um, I am not a huge merchandiser. And even if I'm at the register, even at my own booth, I'm delighted you bought the one thing. I don't tend to upsell. My team looks at me like, out of the way.
At least tell them that there's also this. Like,
Yeah.
you're doing someone a favor when you tell them, did you know there's also this? If they know, sweet. If they didn't know and they wanted it, they're
Right.
like, oh my goodness, thank you.
Yeah. And I have to say that in particular, with every once in a while in the past, I said, oh, you know what? It would be cool to have a something. So, for example, with the Night Cage, one year I came out with color changing mugs, and the candle illustration would, when you put something hot in it, the candle would light, and I thought that was pretty cool. So if it was something kind of cool and fun and thematic, I don't know if I would have done a mug just to do a mug. But I was like, this is a cool concept, and therefore it's a product I want to sell. But I'm usually pretty slow to jump on those things because, I don't know. I don't know exactly how much is too much and that kind of thing. Well, both Scott and my own team that work the booth, they're like saying, "Hey, you should make more stuff." And I'm like, yeah. It's like, yeah, you definitely need to. So so this Gen Con was really the first time that I think we really amped up the merchandising. And in particular, you're right, cats are kind of low hanging fruit. They're adorable, and so who doesn't want the kitty hat that creates the little ears on it? You know, and we had the Christmas ornament because we had a Christmas boot game, and we had the plushie. Um, so especially with a game like Boop, where you've got um, one a strong game that people love, a nice IP, the art itself is engaging and draws people in. So I think sometimes merchandising is a better choice than others, and everyone is right. This was actually a great way to engage more people with more stuff they love.
Let them celebrate it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the thing. Like I've spoken to a lot of people who so merch is something that I really enjoy. I love designing lines of merch. I love figuring out which things make sense with something and which don't, because that's, I mean, a boop mug may not make sense until you
Right.
make it that, you're booping or so, like there has to
Until
be
the
some
until
kind of
the tails wrap on the mug handles.
there we go. There
Yeah.
has to be some kind of like it makes sense
Okay,
thing
hold on a
rather than it
second.
just being like,
Making a note now.
yes. But like sometimes people just do a very kind of print on demand, not very exciting feeling range of merch. And that's why it's unsuccessful, because it's like I could have just bought this off any number of like knockoff sites or whatever. But when you actually spend the time to understand the product and understand your audience and you make these wonderful things, it delights people. It gives people an extra way to celebrate it. And I think that's a really valid and cool thing that we can do
Yeah.
as game designers, as game publishers, as product designers, because that's what we're doing. And I don't think that I've had a lot of people sort of push back on some of the things, and I'm like, yo, pins, stickers, like let people celebrate your thing.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't need to have your brand on it. Most people don't want to wear a brand, but they want to wear the iconic cat from Boop.
Right. Yeah.
They want to wear the whatever the other thing is. They love that stuff. And so you're not it feels sometimes like selling out, but in this case you're not. You're giving people an extra way to get excited about stuff, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. It's interesting. At one point, we had talked about specifically with Spooky Boot, um, because the cats are wearing costumes. We're like, well, do we change up the costumes from year to year? And so we were like, well,
I thought you were going to say, do we sell Boop cat costumes? And I'm like, yes,
oh
you
God,
do.
that's a great idea.
Sell
Yeah.
costumes as Boop, so I can be one of the Boop cats. Yes, I would buy that.
Wow, that's
Yes, but cat, it would be the sexy one for because it's the only costume you can get at Spirit Halloween. If
that's true.
Sexy
Yeah.
Boop cat.
yes,
I mean, it is just a hat,
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
the whole costume. Hi.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No. And also what we found out was don't change the costumes, because I talked to some retailers about it, and they're because I've certainly had people like, oh, some fans would love it, but I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit reticent to do it, and they're like, yeah, if you do that, it's gonna kind of feel like a cash grab.
But
And
also the previous versions either become out of date and crappy or really, really high value in a way that you can't get anything out
Right.
of it. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
and it seems like it's creating. Well, anyway, we decided don't go and do that. But what I will say is, and if you would like a little exclusive here on the show,
Sorry, Loki. Drum roll.
we have also heard from plenty of people like, oh, the gray cats are cool. I like the tiger cats.
Tuxedo.
upgrade packs.
yeah, we don't really, I'd love a calico, or I'd love
Yeah.
to have a little, right? And so we decided, well, let's not sell people a whole game.
Mm.
Let's give them cat packs of the cats they
Yeah.
want. And that way, it's just get the one that you need.
Mm.
Or
And
all of them. All
or
of
all of
them.
them, right?
All of
And
them.
that way,
Please,
if
please make an all of them kit so that I can buy that. And then anyone who plays Boop at my house can be like, oh, I'll be the tuxedo cat. Oh, cool. That's great. I'm going to be the I'll be the, I don't know. I'll be the tabby. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. You can be the calico.
But knowing how Boop works, I have to ask, so how do you know whose cats are whose? Because
Oh, well, so no. Meaning you would buy an entire set.
okay, right.
Yeah. So now, quite honestly, almost the entire cost of the game are the pieces.
Of course it
So
would.
it's going to be like almost half the cost of the game is my guess. I haven't costed it out. I haven't looked into it, so I'm going to start doing so. But that, even for Halloween, if we wanted to come, if you have little vampire cats or whatever, like we can offer those too. And then we're not upsetting anyone. We're being additive. We're being like, and I was even thinking it'd be fun to include like a little cardboard diorama. So you could you could showcase some of the cats like on a, one of the
Well, if-
little
Graveyard or
scratching
something.
Each of the
posts.
boxes is actually kind of a diorama as well.
Yeah.
Like the action figure boxes and things like that. So you can
Right.
actually see the cats doing their thing, and you've got like all the little tabbies or all the little whatevers.
Yeah.
Curt,
So-
hire me. I want to design these for you.
Now I'm just picturing like a wrought iron fence inside there with a mausoleum and all these little scary cats.
Yeah.
You could sell little like outfits that they could have put on them. You could sell
Oh
like
my lord. That's crazy.
like paper dolls.
Yeah, I was
but
gonna say
with
paper
little
dolls,
boots.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So anyway, something we're thinking about.
I'm just like thinking about it really hard. Okay, so we have talked about the idea that theme is probably of greater value than making something very holiday centric. So making things with a theme that will fit into particular events or themed holidays or all of those sorts of things. What other games have you got that you think would do that job? So, like, when would you play Tesseract? How does Hi-Fi fit into these things? Like, do you have any other? I'm just naming two that I've already named because my brain won't give me any more of your games.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would say that most of our games don't necessarily fall easily into that. Certainly, Night Cage and this game is Killer both worked great for holiday just because they're horror based. But and I will say the Spill, we got a lot of play of the Spill for Earth Day.
That makes sense.
That was kind of this, you're defending against, man-made cataclysms and trying to save the sea life, and so it made sense.
I mean, Hi-Fi could work for like a retro party or something like that if everyone's, doing
Absolutely.
like 80s, 90s, something like that.
Yeah. And there are lots of thematic, reasons. I mean, I think it'd be cool just to like, recently there have been a lot of music games. So play Rock Hard, play Hi-Fi, like
Exactly.
do an evening of music games. Fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of
Luthia, that fits. I mean, it fits.
other
Ovation.
things that would like actually lead into like seasonal or holiday that would be like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Fog of Love would almost be scary to play on Valentine's Day, it seems.
Yeah, it would be risky.
Yeah.
I mean, I
think
would
might
recommend
choose
an
Love Letter
established
instead.
relationship. But I mean, it's interesting for me to think about, because I know a lot of people who make small games that are intended to be used at particular times of year. So my friend Jessica does these greeting cards that have a game on them.
Mm-hmm.
Emily Willix, for example, did
Yes.
Bah Humbug.
Yep.
But Bah Humbug, whilst it's very heavily like this is a seasonal game, it's actually got extra games in it, none of which you have to play at that time of year. You
Right.
can play them whenever you want to, but also they've really got that whole sort of the families all together and we don't see each other very much. And so, now that we are all together, let's play these games together kind of vibe. So it
Yeah.
does make a lot of sense. It's like a gathering game. I think that is more important in a lot of ways than just having it be, one of those things in a gift store.
Yeah.
Like it's time to do the, Halloween display. Everything that's Halloween themed comes out. It's sort of I would want in that Halloween display to be the one where people are like, oh, but this is actually a really cool game on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
make the
isn't
good game first,
exactly.
Yeah.
and then if it
Well,
fits somewhere.
You said something that kind of sparked something a little bit for me. Very often in the holidays, people are getting together and playing, and very often for like the first time, especially like when I think about a birthday, if I think about Christmas, like the first time you unwrap a game, like you want to let it hit the table immediately. And so one, when I think about like what kind of games I'm going to be giving during the holidays, I'm either thinking about like, pretty pretty casual games that I think people can open and play pretty quickly and readily. That either they have really short rules, or actually it's a great time to use die. Are you familiar with Dized?
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah. So, well, for who's not, it's a instead of like sitting there and reading the rules for an hour while people are waiting or watching a 20-minute video of how to play, it's an interactive tutorial. It's like having a demo person sit with you, show you how to set everything up and how to play as you play. So, like, I actually have chosen some games because they actually had that, so I could just set them up without having to take the time to go through all that, and we can just play right away. And I think that is so sometimes I will look for seasonal games because of the audience that I'm playing with, or the tools that are available for the game because of that audience. If that makes
No
sense.
barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing I look for those types of, I'm going to call them gathering games. So games when I'm thinking of hosting a gathering, or when I'm thinking of when it'll be played and the types of people who will be there, I tend to look for low entry point, high player count.
Yeah.
But once I've gone a step over that, so say I'm giving it to someone who is a friend of mine who's a gamer, then I might theme the thing. So for example, I might decide, okay, everyone this year is getting a leafy kind of game.
Oh,
And
okay,
I
that's
theme
fun.
gifts for myself.
Yeah, yeah.
I give, so every year I do a stocking for George, for example, and I try and have like a light theme behind the gifts that I get him. So it might be all, I don't know, let's say leaf again, because I said that. So like leafy kind of themes this year. So he would get, a game or two that have got a leafy thing going on and things. So I really enjoy being able to craft that based on the theme and the feel of the game as well. But I really think about the person at the other end as well. Like, does George like leaves? No, actually, no. George would very much like to be able to remove all the leaves in the yard, and I'm like, leave them. They're there for the insects.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you think about board games as gifts, and I mean, I people who are not board gamers, I feel so sorry for them, because it's like buying someone wine. If you don't know anything about wine, you're like, I hope they like it. I know they like wine, so it's like, I feel like most people who are not board gamers, who know that they love board games, is like, first of all, what do they have? I have no idea. Maybe they already own this game. Okay, it's brand new. My confidence just went up. But is this even something they're gonna like? I don't know. And so it's tough. But if you know board games, then you're like, oh, I know what they have enjoyed in the past, and now I can marry like their love of that theme or that game with this, and now I'm going to tie it up with this other little thing that's going to be like perfect complement, and that is super fun. And it's obviously if you know and love games, that can be a real joy. So
Well, a game is a gift of an experience as well. So the
Agreed.
types of gifts I really enjoy giving people are things like, if they're game players, then I like to give them a game that I know will be an experience they enjoy. Otherwise, I literally give it experiences. So like a class where you will learn to do a thing,
I
or
love that.
or a
Yes.
trip, or like last year I made a like a game jam kit that had a whole lot of themed things for Christmas, which we ended up not actually doing because I think that was the year I had COVID, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I had all these plans, but then I was too sick to actually do it, and I was like, "Oh, I made this cool thing and we didn't do it." So we're gonna do that this year, but that's the kind of thing I really enjoy putting together, and so having games that will fit into that, and so I can gift an experience that fits a theme, I think is a really cool thing. So I would highly encourage people to do thematic games that actually are heavier and that have more going on. So like how Boop the Halls isn't an easy game, but it's still got that sort of seasonal
Yeah.
vibe. I mean, yes, more of that, please.
Yeah. Well, so here's a question for you. What is an unlikely holiday that you'd love to see a game about?
I have immediately thought of two. So one of them is Matariki, which is the Maori New Year in New Zealand. So that is generally around about sort of June, July. It depends on when the Pleiades rise. So it's like the deepest, darkest part of the year for us. So it's, exactly like the New Year here, where basically you're hitting the bottom and bouncing up again. So I'd love to see something about Matariki that tells the stories of that and has generally got a Matariki vibe to it. And secondly, so that's like a very sort of cultural and very,
Yeah, actually, I want to know more about this holiday and what it feels like and how people celebrate it.
It's only very recently actually been recognised as a holiday in New Zealand, and we've shifted. So we used to have fireworks for Guy Fawkes, and we've shifted them to Matariki instead because they're around about the same time. But actually, because Matariki is darker, it's a better time for us for fireworks than November, which is basically summer. And so in November, you have to wait until like 10 or 11 for it to be dark enough for the fireworks to be worth it. Whereas fireworks in Matariki is much better. It's like 6 or 7. It's dark enough to go with that. The actual celebrations of the holiday there's not much that I know about it because it's only recently been a thing. And that's one of the reasons I'd love to see more about it.
Okay, cool.
I would like to understand it more. So as with a lot of Indigenous cultures, a lot of the things about them got suppressed during the very colonial times, and some things are being dug up and sort of brought out into the daylight. And Matariki is one of those. So I would love someone who is deeply embedded in the culture to come out and produce something that can teach. But yeah, the other one is one which is a made-up holiday. A 6-year-old kid, I think, 6 or 7-year-old kid came up with this, and it's called Wolfenoot, which is
Wolfenoot. First of all, I love the
Night
name.
of the Wolf. And it's basically the night where you celebrate wolves and dogs and all kinds of things. And this kid just came up with all this cool stuff, and it's been I think it's been about a decade now. And I would just love to see people do a Wolfenoot game. I think that would be neat.
That's
and I'm
great.
starting
I
to
love
think
it.
maybe I'm going to do both of those.
Yeah.
I don't have the knowledge to do a Matariki game, but it would be a good exercise for me to learn more about Matariki, given that it's my culture. I should know more about that.
Yeah, mine might also be a made up holiday. I think Festivus would be great.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah.
I'm somewhat shocked no one has picked that up.
Oh no, there are Festivus
there?
games. Yeah, they're all at that sort of crappy kind of. I
No, but I want it to be good.
Yeah, no, that's yes. I'd like a good one. You may contend with copyright issues there though.
Yeah, I'm
One
sure.
wonders if it's been.
But a secular kind of seasonal holiday would be a great one. Yeah, I would love that.
Cool.
How about you, George?
I suppose for me, if we're gonna do two, I would do May Day, which for everyone who isn't American is basically the rest of the world's Labor Day, where they actually celebrate the rights of workers. And I feel like there's a lot of, and the story of how that came about. There's a lot of. It wouldn't be a light game, but it'd be something worth doing, I think.
That's
Probably
interesting.
something I
So
would
for
like
me, May Day is the day that you dance around the maypole and celebrate the start of spring.
Right. That's where my head was at.
Yeah.
But May 1st, at any rate, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it, and I apologize to my Indian friends for butchering this, but like, is it Diwali or Diwali?
Oh, Diwali.
Yes, I always get it confused.
Yes,
But I
Festival
feel
of
like
Lights. That's a beautiful
yes,
idea.
I feel like there'd be something joyous there that would be have a good table presence. So those are my two.
Yeah. Oh,
What
you
would
only
an
said
April
one.
Fool's game be like?
Sorry.
It would be an empty box. with a weighted base, so you think you're getting something, but this is just an empty box.
That's great.
It'd be great for regifting, though. I mean,
right?
Yeah, but so those would be your two. If anyone's watching, feel free to give us ideas of what you think would be good. Little lesser known kinds of holidays, but actually, now that I look at the time, maybe you would like to add those into the comments later, but we should probably wrap up so that we don't get in trouble with Mrs. Curt, because we did promise we wouldn't go over time, and we've gone over time. So that was really interesting. I enjoyed that a lot. Thank you, Curt.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always fun hanging out and chatting with you guys.
Absolutely. And now we have to do our little plug things. So where you can find Sen, who's not here right now. George, do you have the cards ready to go?
yes.
Okay, so Sen, who would normally be here but isn't because he's giving people violent cuddles, that is jujitsu, just in case you're concerned. You can get him at Sen Fung Lim on Twitter and Blue Sky. And for us, so not just me, this is both of us from Drearing. You can get us on all the things at Drearing. So that is both me and George, although you're generally going to be talking to me. And where can we find Curt?
Well, smirkanddagger.com will do. And on Facebook, Smirk and Dagger will find us too. So
love that. And here's a little plug for helping us keep the lights on. That is our Patreon link, hopefully, which is hopefully the next card that, yay, good work. So yes, if you feel like helping us, we would very much appreciate anything that you would love to give us there. Next week, we have Jesse Damon, who will be talking to just me again. And we're going to be talking about what is interesting from the perspective of someone who sells games at retail. So Jesse works in a friendly local game store and also creates content about games, but is not actually a game designer. So that's a really interesting angle, and that's what we're going to be talking about next week.
I will tune in.
So, what? Sorry?
I will tune in.
I would love that. That would be awesome. And obviously, the thing that we always make our guests go through at the very end of the show is a piece of final advice. What you got for us? Yes.
Make the games memorable.
That is very good. That is very good advice.
Actually, I'm make the games memory makers is really more to the point.
That's the experience. That's right. Oh, and Kristen is here. Hi, Kristen. Loves all the boop discussions. Well, hopefully, if you weren't able to catch all of the boop discussions, You are welcome to rewatch this. It will be available on all of the places where this is currently going to, and it looks like it is in fact going both to YouTube and Facebook. We love that. So thank you, George, for doing our tech tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you again, Curt, for being on the show and talking to us about all the things. And thank you to everyone who has watched and who will watch. And we're going to wrap it up. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great, safe, spooky time tomorrow.
Happy Halloween.
At all.
Bye.